My name is Sophie Callahan, and I was 10 years old when I learned that a ski lift ticket could decide who counted as family and who could be left behind. I remember standing inside Denver International Airport with my duffel bag digging into my shoulder, watching my father crouch in front of me like he was about to explain something perfectly reasonable. Instead, he pressed an envelope into my hand and told me there had been a small change of plans. Small. That was the word he used while his new wife Tanya and her daughter Kayla waited near the security checkpoint in matching cashmere sweaters, laughing beside a rack of ski equipment. I looked down and found cash inside the envelope, not a boarding pass. My suitcase was still beside me. My phone was at 12% battery, and I did not have a key to the house because I was supposed to be leaving with them. He told me I was old enough to handle myself, old enough not to cause a scene, old enough to understand that this trip was important for his new family. Then he stood up, adjusted his jacket, and walked away. I kept waiting for him to turn around. I kept thinking this had to be a test or a joke, or one of those adult mistakes somebody would fix in a minute. But he passed through security without looking back, and Tanya glanced over her shoulder with an expression that looked almost like relief. That night, one phone call brought someone to me that I had been told not to trust for years, and when my father came home from his luxury ski trip, my room was empty, my closet was cleared out, and a legal notice was waiting on my bed. Before I tell you what happened after that, tell me where you are watching from, and what the weather is like where you are. I want to know how far this story can travel, because what happened next changed everything I believed about family. I stayed frozen near the security entrance long after they disappeared. At 10 years old, I did not understand custody orders, adult selfishness, or how someone could call abandonment a lesson in independence. I only understood that my father had walked away with his new family, and I was still standing there with an envelope of cash I did not know how to use. I tried calling him first. Once. Twice, 6 times. Every call went to voicemail. Then a text came through. Stop being dramatic. You're old enough to figure out a ride. Do not make this into something it isn't. I stared at those words until the letters blurred. My phone battery was already low because I had spent the morning taking pictures of my suitcase, my new ski jacket, and the little travel journal I had bought with my allowance, thinking I would fill it with vacation memories. Now the battery icon was red, and the airport felt bigger with every passing minute. I dragged my duffel bag to a row of chairs near a coffee kiosk and tried to look like I belonged there. Families kept passing me, parents holding children's hands, mothers fixing hats and scarves, fathers carrying tired kids on their shoulders. Every time I saw one, my throat tightened. I wanted to scream, I am someone's child too. Instead, I sat there quietly because my father had trained me to believe that needing help made me a burden. I counted the money in the envelope twice, then shoved it back inside because it felt dirty against my fingers. It was not help. It was hush money. After nearly 3 hours, an airport employee with a gentle voice stopped in front of me and asked where my grown-up was. I lied at first. I said my dad was parking the car. She looked at my duffel bag, then at my face, and her voice softened. Sweetheart, how long has he been parking? That was when I broke. The whole story came out in uneven pieces. The ski trip, the envelope, the security line, the text messages. She took me to an airport police desk and let me charge my phone behind the counter. An officer asked for my father's name, his phone number, and where we lived. I remember feeling ashamed, like I was getting my father in trouble, instead of admitting he had left me in trouble. The officer asked if there was another parent they could call. I shook my head automatically, because that was what I had always done. My father had told me for years that my mother chose her career over me. He said she loved surgery rooms, adrenaline, and saving strangers more than bedtime stories and school plays. Whenever I asked why she never came to see me, he would say, "Some people aren't built to be parents, Sophie. They're built to be important." After hearing that long enough, I believed it. But while my phone charged, I scrolled through my contacts and saw a name I almost never touched. Mom. My finger hovered over it for so long the screen dimmed. I was terrified she would not answer. I was even more terrified she would answer and prove my father right. Finally, I pressed call. It rang once before a woman's voice said my name so fast it sounded like she had been waiting years to say it. Sophie. For a second, I forgot how to speak. Then I whispered, Dad left me at the airport. There was a sharp silence on the other end. Not cold silence, not annoyed silence. The kind of silence that happens when someone's whole world stops moving. Then her voice came back, steady and urgent. Listen to me carefully. Find the nearest airport police officer and stay with them. Do not leave with anyone. Do not let your phone die. I am coming, I said. You don't have to, she answered. I should have come a long time ago. 4 hours later, an officer walked me through a quiet corridor toward a private aviation terminal. I remember the glass doors opening, the cold Colorado night air, and a helicopter waiting on the tarmac under bright lights. A woman stepped out before the rotors had fully stopped, ducking beneath the blades with her coat billowing behind her. She looked nothing like the selfish stranger my father had described. She looked scared, breathless, and broken open. When she saw me, she covered her mouth and started crying. Then she ran to me, dropped to her knees on the cold pavement, and wrapped her arms around me so tightly I could feel her heart pounding against my chest. For the first time that day, I stopped trying to be mature. I cried like the 10-year-old I was in the worst moment of my life. One phone call had brought back the person I had been taught to fear, and I had no idea that she was about to uncover years of lies. My mother did not sweep me into the helicopter and disappear like she was stealing me. That was the first thing that made me realize she was different from the story I had been told. She spoke to the airport police, signed a report, asked for the names of every employee who had helped me, and made sure the officer saved the text message where my father told me not to be dramatic. She asked if the security cameras would show him handing me the envelope and walking into the checkpoint without me. The officer said, "Yes, ma'am. The footage is already being pulled." My mother nodded like every answer was another brick in a wall she had been waiting years to build. On the helicopter, I sat across from her with my duffel bag at my feet, wrapped in a thermal blanket I did not ask for but desperately needed. She offered me water, then a protein bar, then just sat quietly when I could not eat. I kept staring at her, searching for the careless woman my father had described. She noticed and did not force me to talk. After a while, she said, "I know you've been told things about me. I won't ask you to stop believing them tonight. Tonight, you only need to know you are safe." That made me cry again because nobody in my father's house ever said things like that. In his house, love had rules. Be grateful, be quiet, fit in. Do not make Tanya uncomfortable. Do not remind anyone that he had a life before them. Do not ask questions about the mother, who was supposedly too important to care. My mother told me her name was Diana Callahan now, because she had taken back her maiden name after the divorce. She said she had fought for more time with me when I was little, but my father had better lawyers, more local influence, and a talent for making her look unstable because she worked long shifts as an ER surgeon. She admitted she had made mistakes. She had trusted court orders to protect a relationship that needed more than paper. She had believed that sending letters, gifts, and video messages would at least keep a door open. But my father had apparently locked that door and told me she was the one who walked away. She did not ask me to forgive her that night. She did not try to make herself the hero. She only told me that whatever came next, she would not let another adult decide whether I was worth protecting. When we landed in Boulder, a black car drove us to a quiet neighborhood at the base of the Flatirons. Her house was modern, but not cold. There were books stacked on tables, photographs in the hallway, blankets draped over couches, and a room upstairs that stopped me in the doorway. It had pale lavender walls, a shelf of children's books, a stuffed fox on the bed, and unopened gifts arranged by age. I recognized my name on the tags: Sophie age 7, Sophie age 8, Sophie age 9, Sophie age 10. My knees felt weak. She kept them, all of them. My mother stood behind me and said, "I sent some. I saved the rest when they came back or went unanswered. Your father said you didn't want anything from me." I touched the oldest gift with trembling fingers and felt a strange anger rising through the sadness. Not anger at her. Anger at every birthday I had stared at an empty mailbox and thought I was unwanted. Before sunrise, a family law attorney named Rebecca Hart arrived at the house with a laptop, a legal pad, and the calmest voice I had ever heard. She spoke gently to me, but when she turned to my mother, her words became sharp and precise. A 10-year-old left alone at a major airport, no confirmed transportation, no house key, parent unreachable, text evidence minimizing distress, misuse of trust funds intended for the child. We file emergency custody in Colorado immediately. My mother looked at me before agreeing. She asked, Sophie, do you want to stay here while we figure this out? Nobody had asked me what I wanted in so long that I did not answer at first. Then I nodded. Rebecca explained that my father could not simply show up and take me back because the court would be told exactly what happened. She also said all communication should go through lawyers until a judge decided what was safe. While my father was somewhere in the mountains near Aspen, posting smiling pictures from a luxury ski chalet with his new family, my mother and Rebecca were gathering airport footage, police notes, texts, travel records, and trust fund statements. I fell asleep that morning in a room that had been waiting for me for years. Downstairs, adults who actually cared whether I was safe began making the quiet phone calls that would destroy my father's perfect vacation before he even came home. 10 days later, my father returned to Denver tanned, rested, and completely unprepared for the house he walked into. I know what happened because I heard pieces of it later from court records, from Kayla, and from the messages he left after panic replaced arrogance. He expected me to be there. That was the part that still amazes me. He truly believed I would find a ride home, sit alone with my hurt feelings, and wait for him to return so he could lecture me about maturity and self-reliance. He thought the world worked that way because for years, everyone around him had let it. Tanya walked in first, carrying a designer tote and complaining about the altitude. Kayla was showing her phone to her mother, scrolling through ski lodge photos. My father dropped his luggage near the stairs and called my name, not with concern but with irritation. Sophie, come down here, we need to talk. No answer. He went upstairs. My bedroom door was open, the room was almost empty. My clothes were gone. My school books were gone. The little nightlight I had kept since I was 6 was gone. The framed photo of me at a 3rd grade science fair was gone. The closet door hung open with bare hangers inside. Even the small wooden box under my bed, the one where I kept birthday cards, old drawings, and a friendship bracelet from 2nd grade had been taken. On the bed there was only my house key, a handwritten letter, and a thick envelope from my mother's attorney. My father picked up the legal papers first. That tells you everything about him. Not the letter from his child, not the key that meant I was not coming back. The legal papers. Tanya came to the doorway and asked what was wrong. Then she saw the court heading, my mother's name, and the words emergency temporary custody. Her face changed so quickly that Kayla stopped scrolling. What did you do, Bradley? She whispered. He snapped that it was nothing, just a misunderstanding. Just my mother being vindictive. But his hands were shaking as he read. The papers listed the airport police report, the security footage request, the text messages, the fact that I was 10, and the claim that funds from my maternal grandmother's trust had been improperly used. That last part made Tanya step back like the paper was radioactive. Her entire public image was built on being part of a loving, blended family. She posted matching ski outfits, chalet photos, Sunday brunch content, captions about gratitude and togetherness. A child abandoned at an airport did not fit her brand. Kayla looked from her mother to my father and asked, "Did you really leave her there?" Nobody answered. My letter was shorter than I expected it to be when I wrote it. I had imagined pages of anger, but when the time came, I only needed a few sentences. I wrote that I waited for him to turn around. I wrote that I had believed him when he said my mother did not care. I wrote that he taught me a lesson, just not the one he intended. He taught me that a father could stand close enough to touch my shoulder and still choose to abandon me. I ended the letter by saying I was safe, I was with my mother, and I would not speak to him unless a judge and a therapist said it was okay. That was when he started calling. First me, then my mother, then Rebecca, then me again. I did not answer. My mother did not answer. Rebecca's office sent one message. All contact regarding Sophie must go through counsel. My father hated that. He hated not being able to talk his way out of consequences. He left voicemails that started soft and ended furious. "Sweetheart, this got out of hand. Then, your mother is manipulating you. Then, you have no idea what you're doing. Then, put Diana on the phone right now." I listened to one and stopped. His voice did not sound like a man grieving his daughter. It sounded like a man furious that his property had been moved without permission. Meanwhile, Tanya began deleting vacation posts. But screenshots had already been taken by friends, by school parents, by people who had seen her captions about a dream family getaway. The dream was cracking, and for the first time in my life, my father could not make me stand inside the wreckage and call it home. The first hearing was the first time I saw my father after the airport. I sat beside my mother in a courthouse conference room, wearing a soft green sweater she had bought only after asking if I liked it. My feet did not touch the floor, and I kept swinging them until Rebecca gently placed a hand over mine and told me I was allowed to be nervous. My father's entered with an expensive attorney and the expression he used when business deals went wrong. He tried to smile at me like we had a private understanding. I looked down at my hands. Tanya came with him, polished and tense, her wedding ring catching the light every time she adjusted her sleeve. She did not look at me. The hearing began with his lawyer calling the airport incident a regrettable miscommunication. He said my father believed I had arranged a ride with a friend. He said I was a bright, capable child. He said my father never intended harm. Rebecca let him finish. Then she opened a folder. The first exhibit was the airport police report. It stated that a minor child had been found alone for several hours after her custodial parent boarded a flight with other family members. The second exhibit was my father's text. "Stop being dramatic. You're old enough to figure out a ride. Do not make this into something it isn't." The judge read it twice. The room became very quiet. Then came the footage. I did not watch the whole thing. I could not, but I saw enough. My father bending toward me, his hand pressing the envelope into my palm, Tanya waiting impatiently near security. Kayla glancing back once with an expression I could not read, the three of them entering the checkpoint. Me standing alone, still watching long after they were gone. My father's lawyer tried to argue that there had been money for transportation. Rebecca asked for proof of a scheduled car service. There was none. She asked whether I had a house key. My father said he assumed I did. Rebecca showed a text from that morning where I had written, "I left my key on the kitchen counter because we're all traveling together, right?" He had replied with a thumbs-up emoji. The judge's face hardened. My father shifted in his chair. But Rebecca was not finished. She presented records from my mother showing years of support payments, gift receipts, returned letters, and video messages sent weekly that had never been opened. Then she showed the trust fund statements. My maternal grandmother had established a trust for my education and care before she died. The records showed regular deposits. Then withdrawals began, not for tuition, not for medical care, not for school supplies, chalet deposits, first-class flight upgrades, a private ski instructor invoice, a chartered snowmobile excursion, a luxury spa package at the resort. The judge asked one question that seemed to cut through every excuse. Why was a child's trust fund used for a luxury trip the child was excluded from? My father said it was a temporary accounting measure. It was the weakest thing I had ever heard him say. After that, the excuses became uglier. He claimed my mother was unstable and absent. Rebecca produced years of messages from my mother asking to speak with me, all unanswered or blocked. She produced the weekly video messages my mother had recorded, every Sunday for years, talking to the camera like she was talking directly to me, reading books, sharing stories, telling me she loved me. My father had told her I did not want to see them. He had deleted every single one before I ever knew they existed. He claimed I was emotionally fragile and easily influenced. Rebecca said, "She is 10. The question is not whether she is fragile. The question is why her father chose to leave her alone in an airport and steal from her future to fund his vacation." Tanya then made the mistake of speaking. She said this had been blown out of proportion and that I had always struggled to accept the new family dynamic. Her words were smooth, but they carried the same message I had heard in her house for years. I was the problem. The judge asked her directly if she knew before arriving at the airport that I was not included in the final travel plan. She hesitated. That hesitation was enough. Her attorney, who had come only to observe, leaned forward and quietly advised her not to answer further. That was the moment I saw fear replace performance. She was no longer worried about me ruining a vacation. She was worried about being tied to what my father had done. Rebecca then presented one final set of documents. They were screenshots from my father's public business profile, where he had recently given a keynote speech at a real estate conference called Family First Leadership. In one slide, he had written that true success meant nothing if a man could not protect the people under his own roof. The judge did not comment on it, but my father's face turned red. The hypocrisy was no longer private. It was written in his own words, projected onto a screen for hundreds of industry colleagues to admire. The judge granted temporary physical custody to my mother, ordered supervised visitation only, required my father to submit complete financial records related to the trust fund, and warned him that any attempt to contact me outside approved channels would damage his case. My father looked stunned, like consequences were a foreign language and nobody had provided subtitles. As we left, he stepped toward me and said my name. Rebecca moved between us before my mother even had to. "Not today," she said. His face flushed with anger, but he stopped. That was the first time I saw an adult tell my father no and make it stick. In the parking lot, my mother knelt in front of me and asked if I was okay. I was not okay. Not yet. But I remember looking back at the courthouse doors and realizing something important. My father had abandoned me in public, lied in private, and expected the world to believe his version because it always had before. This time the camera saw him, the records exposed him, the judge heard him, and I did not have to carry the truth alone anymore. Life in Boulder did not magically heal me. That would make a cleaner story, but it would not be true. For the first few weeks, I woke up every morning afraid someone had changed their mind. I packed my backpack too carefully. I asked permission to eat snacks. I kept my shoes near the door like I might need to leave quickly. My mother noticed all of it, but she did not shame me. She just kept showing up. Breakfast at the same time, school tours when I was ready. Therapy every Wednesday with a woman named Dr. Patel, who told me that children often blame themselves because blaming adults feels too frightening. I did blame myself. I wondered if I had been too quiet, too needy, too much like my mother, not enough like the family my father wanted. Dr. Patel helped me put those thoughts somewhere outside my body. She said, "Sophie, being abandoned tells you something about the person who left, not the child who was left behind." I did not believe her immediately, but I remembered it. My new school was smaller than the one in Denver, and everyone seemed to know how to rock climb, pronounce quinoa correctly, and talk about summer camps I had never heard of. I felt like an alien with a lunchbox, but a girl named Mira asked if I wanted to sit with her at lunch, and when I said I might be boring, she said, "Boring people never say they're boring." That made me laugh for the first time in days. Slowly, Boulder became real. My room became my room. My mother learned that I hated mushrooms and loved waffles. I learned that she drank too much tea when nervous and kept every school photo she could get, even the ones where I was blinking. We were not instantly close. Sometimes I felt angry at her for not saving me sooner. Sometimes she cried when she thought I was asleep, but she never asked me to comfort her. She went to her own therapist for that, which taught me something important about healthy adults. They do not make children responsible for their guilt. My father requested supervised visits after the court ordered them. The first one took place in a family center with beige walls, plastic toys, and a counselor sitting nearby with a notebook. He brought gifts, too many gifts, a tablet, a necklace, a stuffed bear bigger than my duffel bag had been. I looked at them and felt nothing. He said he missed me. He said the whole situation had become a nightmare. He said my mother and her lawyer had turned a family misunderstanding into a legal attack. The counselor asked if he wanted to say anything about what happened at the airport. He sighed and said, "I'm sorry everything got so out of control." That sentence stayed with me because it was not an apology. It was a complaint wearing a costume. He was sorry for the consequences, not the choice. After the visit, I told my mother I did not want another one for a while. She said, "Okay, just okay. No pressure, no speech about forgiveness." Meanwhile, my father's life began falling apart in ways he could not hide. His real estate development company had been negotiating a major partnership with a luxury ski resort group that promoted family-centered mountain living. When the story reached the wrong board member, the partnership paused. Then it disappeared. Tanya's online followers noticed she had deleted vacation posts, and someone from our old neighborhood shared that I had not been on the trip because I had been left at the airport. The internet did what it does. It took a perfect picture and zoomed in on the crack. Sponsors backed away from her lifestyle content. Comments filled with questions she could not answer. Kayla sent me a message months later from a new account. "I'm sorry I didn't say anything. I knew it was wrong." I did not reply right away, but I did not hate her. She had been a child too, older than me, but still trapped inside the adult's choices. Tanya eventually filed for separation. Court documents later showed she wanted financial protection from any investigation into the trust fund. The woman who once smiled as I was left behind now wanted distance from the man who did it. My father had built his life around looking successful, generous, and in control. But control is fragile when it depends on everyone staying silent. He lost primary custody. He was ordered to repay the trust fund with interest. He lost the ski resort partnership. He lost invitations to speak at leadership conferences where he used to stand on stage and talk about integrity. He lost friends who had repeated his version of the divorce without ever asking for mine. He lost the family image he had chosen over me. And most importantly, he lost the right to decide what my story meant. Years passed before I could tell this story without feeling the airport floor under my shoes. Trauma is strange that way. You can be safe in a warm kitchen years later, and suddenly a boarding announcement in a movie brings you back to the exact second someone walked away. Healing did not mean forgetting. It meant learning that memory did not get to be my whole identity. My mother and I built a life slowly, with honesty instead of pretending. She apologized more than once, but the apology that mattered most was not dramatic. It happened on a regular Tuesday while we were folding laundry. She said, "I should have fought harder before the airport. I cannot change that, but I will never again let an adult make you feel unreachable." I believed her because by then she had proven it in small ways. She showed up to school meetings. She asked before posting photos of me. She listened when I said I was angry. She did not punish me for loving her and resenting her at the same time. That is what real repair looks like. Not one big speech, 100 quiet choices. My father continued trying to reach me for years. Sometimes through approved letters, sometimes through relatives, sometimes with apologies that sounded almost real, until they turned back toward himself. "I lost everything after that day," he wrote once. I remember reading that sentence and thinking, no, you lost everything after your choices finally became visible. I did not answer most of the letters. The boundary was not revenge, it was protection. There is a difference. Revenge tries to keep you tied to the person who hurt you. Protection helps you walk away with your future still in your hands. By college, I understood that my story was not rare enough. Too many children are treated like luggage in adult conflicts, passed around, hidden, used, blamed, or ignored until they learn to make themselves small. I studied child psychology because I wanted to understand how parental alienation damages children and how to help those children be heard before they had to scream. Later, I worked with family court programs that trained adults to recognize emotional abandonment, not just physical danger. I told judges, counselors, and parents, something I wish everyone had known when I was 10, a child can be fed, dressed, and enrolled in school and still be deeply unsafe if the adults around them teach them that love depends on convenience. Real education is not only what children learn in classrooms, it is also what adults teach them through protection, honesty, and consistency. Valuable knowledge can come from painful places, but children should never have to be wounded just to become wise. My father paid a price that looked satisfying from the outside. His second marriage ended. His company survived but never fully recovered its old reputation. The Family First speeches disappeared from his public profile. People who once admired him began speaking about him carefully, as if his name came with a warning label. But the deeper consequence was quieter. He became someone I could remember without needing to return to. I did forgive him in the only way that made sense to me. I stopped letting his failure decide how much love I deserved. I did not invite him back into my life. Those two truths can exist together. Forgiveness is not a door you must reopen. Sometimes it is the lock you finally stop checking. When I think of that airport now, I do not only see the moment he left. I see the officer who believed me. I see the woman at the desk who let me charge my phone. I see my mother stepping out of that helicopter with fear and love written all over her face. I see a little girl who thought asking for help would prove she was weak, and I want to kneel beside her and tell her the truth. Calling for help was the bravest thing she had ever done. Family is not proven by last names, matching vacation photos, or who stands beside you when life is easy. Family is proven by the people who come when your voice shakes, who protect you when it costs them something, who tell the truth even when lies would be more comfortable. Blood can explain where you came from, but it cannot excuse who abandoned you. Children do not exist to protect adult egos. They deserve safety, consistency, and love that does not disappear at the security checkpoint. If you have ever had to choose between familiar pain and a love that arrived late but arrived honestly, I hope you know this. Leaving what hurts you is not betrayal. Asking for help is not weakness. And the people who fail to value you do not get the final word on your worth. My father left me at the airport for a luxury ski trip with his new family. But one phone call taught me that being left behind is not always the end of the story. Sometimes it is the first step toward being found. I pinned a question in the comments. Have you ever been made to feel like a burden by the very people who were supposed to protect you? How did you find your way back to yourself? Go to that pinned comment and tell me your honest thoughts. I want to hear your story too. And if this story reminded you of a child who deserved better, or a parent who showed up late but showed up fully, stay close to She Chose Herself. Every voice here helps another person believe that asking for help is not weakness. It is the beginning of finding your way home.